So I'm going to introduce Helena, who's going to, okay, thank you. So Helena's going to talk about how to start low carb.
House. Yeah. Okay, so hi everybody. My name's Helena Kastanis. So I'm founder of Changing Plates, and I'm a health and transformation coach. I'm here to talk to you about the LCHF lifestyle. So low carb healthy fat is basically eating real whole foods, as Avi's touched upon. It's about healing your body from the inside out. So we're so glad to see so many of you here. So whether this is all new information, or you're being curious about low carb and you're wanting to know more, or you've been sent here by your doctor, thanks Avi. There is, as Amy said, there is good news. So LCHF is just that. It's reducing carbohydrate in your diet and eating healthy saturated fats. So it's an ancestral approach to eating. So it's certainly not new, and it's not a fad. People have been eating this way for thousands of years. It is the proper human diet. It's a therapeutic diet. It's a healing diet. And it is liberating. And more than anything, it's a vehicle, as mentioned before, that we can heal. So, how did we get here? We're tired, lacking energy, living with chronic pain, restricted in our movement. We're not exercising. We're neglecting our emotional health. Might be overweight, depressed, suffering with addiction. Did we get here in 6 weeks on a 28-day plan? Or replacing 2 meals a day with a shake? No. It's taken us a lifetime to get to this point. So the first thing I just want to say is that with this lifestyle is to be patient. Okay, there is no quick fix. And I've picked up a new little quote in my reading this week, which is direction is the key, not the speed. So with low carb, you eat to nourish and lower inflammation. You eat to balance your blood sugar and your hormones, insulin, and you prioritize your health, not so much your weight. I understand that people need to lose weight to get their health back, but it's a lifestyle. So to give you an example, before I discovered low carb, I was doing all the right things. I was having low-fat yogurt. You kidding? The Greek voice isn't loud enough? I ate low-fat yogurt with muesli for breakfast, maybe with a couple of pieces of whole grain toast, because that was healthier than white bread, right? A muesli bar around 10 o'clock, a couple of sushi rolls for lunch, Rev milk in the coffee, lots of veggies, homemade meals, takeaway a couple of times a week, pasta probably a few times a week. I've got little kids, very quick dinner, cakes every now and again. Used to smash a packet of Tim Tams occasionally, but I was fine. I convinced myself my weight didn't matter. It didn't matter that I was waking up every morning with back pain. I couldn't walk half a K without panting. I was squeezing myself into size 18 jeans. I couldn't do them up because I just couldn't bring myself to buy size 20 because I had to go to a different shop. Suzanne goes to an 18, right? Didn't want to go to that shop. It didn't matter that I wasn't looking at myself as I walked past shops in the window anymore because, I was working full time. I had my kids. I was an award-winning cake decorator. So I had a side hustle, decorating cakes. I had my life together, but I was sleeping 4 hours a night. My hair started falling out. I was flying interstate, teaching cake decorating. I was on national television. I was rubbing shoulders with the cake boss. And, I had 16,000 Instagram followers. I was so fine. It wasn't funny. I was fine, right? But what is all that called? All that I just described, that's called a lifestyle. So a lifestyle is a way in which a person lives and the values and the ideas that are supported by that person, like day by day by day. So that lifestyle was contributing to a slow and steady decline in my health. So hardly noticeable on the daily, but over time, had this tsunami of inflammation had just seeped into my body. I steadily gained weight and I was tipping 96 kilos and I was diagnosed with fatty liver. So I was pre-diabetic at 44. So concurrently, my mother-in-law was very, very sick. You may have heard this story before. I've told it in Low Carb Melbourne on Tracy's podcast, but I love telling it because it's a really good example of how effective the low carb lifestyle changes can be. So I was 44, fatty liver. I went to the doctor for blood tests because I just couldn't shift the weight. I tried every diet and I thought, well, it must be my thyroid because I'm doing everything right. It couldn't possibly be me. So that was my lot. And so at the same time, my mother-in-law was 73, type 2 diabetic for 30 years. So she followed her GP and her specialist advice to the T, and she just got sicker and sicker and fatter, and she was on 17 medications daily. So her EGFR, kidney function, was down to 23. So she was staring down the barrel of dialysis. Now, once you start dialysis, there's no unstarting dialysis. You're on dialysis. So she was scared, and so was I. We were all scared for her. There she is there. You can see in December 2018. We started low carb January 2019. So she's an amazing lady. But I didn't want to be like her. I didn't want to be in and out of hospital, didn't want to have strokes. I didn't want to have a pacemaker, depressed, have high blood pressure, be unable to walk very far, to be forgetful, because before I knew it, I would be 73. And I had to not change something. So we were two scared women with our own health crisis. And so it began. We had a friend who was a type 1 diabetic, and he had popped the CGM on, like Avi has, and he was managing his condition with LCHF, contrary to all the advice he's ever been given in his life about managing his diabetes. And he was just, dropping little seeds of information here and there. So my husband and I were curious, but we weren't curious enough to do anything about it. But it was off the back of an endocrinologist appointment that my mother-in-law had waited 6 months for, that her specialist said to my husband, asked, so how many carbs a day should mum be having? Because our friend asked us to ask it. All this time, George, my husband, had been going to appointments with his mum. No one had ever thought to ask that question. And the specialist said, oh, come on now, you're not going to change it. Just let her eat whatever she wants and let her enjoy her life. And that's when we became pretty angry, because it was evident that because I believe because she was elderly, they had just written her off. So there was nothing to be done. That's her lot in life. She's just going to decline. And, that's what happens when you're type 2 diabetic. But that fueled our thirst for knowledge. So we got onto YouTube and we discovered Prof. Tim Noakes, found Dr. Sewers, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Ben Bickman, Eric Westman, our Gary, Australia's Gary Fetke. We were fangirling all the rebels and outcasts of the medical world, who now, a few short years later, they are just the shining beacons of low carb nutrition. And they've indeed started this grassroots movement that we're all a part of now. And it really has gained so much momentum in the last few years. It's been amazing. So we had nothing to lose, she and I, and we did it together. No counting macros. We didn't have diet plans. It was very, very basic. And this is the wonderful thing about low carb, is that you can be regimented and track everything and count your macros and download the app and all that sort of thing. But that doesn't work for everybody. So when you're 73 and you don't speak English and you don't have an iPhone, it's got to be practical and very simple. So what did we do? So to start, we changed meal by meal what was on our plate. We learned how to read the nutrition panel on the back of the box, life skill that, I'd never done before. And it is really eye-opening once you understand what's in the food that you're buying. For instance, we swapped out rice crackers for seed crackers. We ditched the cereals. We made our own granola. We poured the low-fat milk down the sink and we put full-fat cream in the coffee. We discovered low-carb baking. We filled our plates with protein, non-starchy vegetables, cheese, eggs, healthy fats, and made an effort to move daily. And after a little bit, we introduced the intermittent fasting. So as Avi touched on, you
you lose the hunger is not there constantly anymore. So it's not a diet. This is just how we eat now. It's a lifestyle. So these are the daily habits. It's not restrictive. So I don't deprive myself of food. I've never eaten as much as what I eat now. I was constantly on a diet. So she did 20 minutes of walking every other day, and that's it. So strength training, especially 40 and over, is super, super important. But when you're elderly and you have restricted movement to begin with, it's not something you'll begin doing right at the start. So within 18 months, she had come off 15 medications, dodged dialysis, and reversed to type 2 diabetes to put it into remission. She's improved her kidney function, which is now in the low 40s. So she's lost more than 20 kilos and she feels amazing. She's got a new lease of life and she's an inspiration to all her community. The Greek community, majority of them are diabetic. And, you know, the discussion around the table is, well, how many units of insulin are you taking? I'm taking this many units of insulin, you know, because it's for them, it's just something you get when you're old. They don't understand that you have a choice and that it is possible. So living a low carb lifestyle means that we adapted our cooking and what we offered our families at the same time. The whole family is low carb. So every now and again, yes, the kids will have some pasta or some potatoes, just that I choose not to have it. Like they're young, they're metabolically healthy, and their bodies can adapt to be flexible. So know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with your children being on a low carb, in this low carb lifestyle, because nothing's going to happen to them if they don't eat crap. Type 2 diabetes and obesity are on the rise in preteens in this country. So the more processed food and sugars we can cut out of the diet, the better. So there's no need to cook separately. I know it's a stress point for a lot of people. Well, now I've got to cook 2 meals. So this isn't your diet. You know, it's if you lead by example and introduce it slowly, you know that'll become the normal in your household, because we all have to unlearn that belief system we have around food. So eating food out of a box will soon become a rarity instead of the everyday occurrence. So with your children, you know, they unconsciously start to make better choices when they become responsible for their own nutrition. It's not perfect, but nothing is perfect. At the end of the day, the less sugar we consume, the better. So the nuances around how to implement low carb and how many carbs you need to have depends on where you are at with your health. So a 30-year type 2 diabetic with pending kidney failure is not going to be at the same starting point that someone who is looking to make some improvements in their health, or the doctors told them, look, you know, you might be a smidge on the insulin resistant side. You've got to make some, you know, think about making lifestyle choice changes. So this is why the advice, everything in moderation and eat the rainbow, it's not helpful. So you've got to think about where you're at and speak with your low carb GP to formulate your plan. Low carb GP, not all GPs are across this this way of eating. So experiment, see how you feel, take one meal at a time. So you don't have to buy anything special to get the job done, because the last few years, especially the diet industry has really infiltrated the low carb space. So you'll go to the supermarket now and you'll see low carb protein bar and keto this. So anything that's labeled keto or low carb, it might be a bit lower in sugars, but it's still processed crap, right? It's got a lot of inflammatory ingredients. But read the box, read the back. If you see seed oils or glucoses or different, you know, there's 50, 70 different names for sugar. If you don't see fillers and other ingredients you can't pronounce, don't touch it. So the freedom that comes from being real about the food that you're eating means you don't have to have the latest this or that. There's no pressure to keep up with anything if you just keep it simple. Just don't be confused by the hype. There's a lot of hype around keto out there at the moment. And by the way, keto, it's a metabolic state. It's not a diet. So just, you know, it's just another marketing ploy that everyone's using to get people on board. So the crux of it, as I've come to understand it, is that we're all responsible for our own health. So we have to take charge and we have to want to do something about it. So, I've learned that doctors are not responsible for our health. They can give you all the well-meaning advice they can, but at the end of the day, these daily little changes are going to be what makes the big difference. So my mother-in-law, who was diabetic for 30 years, she saw GPs, specialists, diabetes educators, nurses, endocrinologists, and dietitians, and she got sicker and sicker and sicker. Her medications increased, her symptoms got worse, she suffered multiple strokes, pacemaker, her cognitive ability was rapidly diminishing, she was depressed, she had severe episodes of high blood pressure that saw us rush her to the ED at the Alfred on multiple occasions. And she was steadily gaining weight and unable to use it because she was on 54 units of insulin a day. And every year that was increasing at her checkup because she was told, look, and she was made to feel like it was her fault too. If you don't lose weight, we're going to have to increase your insulin. Look, you've got to lose weight because we've got to increase your insulin. And we know that you can't eat 300 grams of carbs a day and take insulin and lose weight. It's impossible. You just can't do it. But no one ever told her to cut the carbs out of her diet. So she was carbohydrate intolerant, and within a year, she turned 30 years of misery on its head. And all she did was change what she ate. She didn't eat less, she just ate differently. So when you remove the cause, the symptoms go away by default. So being overweight or obese or type 2 diabetic or suffering any of the plethora of chronic conditions that are spawned by the overload of sugars in our diet are often symptoms of lifestyle behaviors and choices. So they need to be treated with a lifestyle change, which isn't easy. And this is why we're all here. But it's not just a weight loss story. The weight will come off. It's a side effect of getting your health back. So low carb is that therapeutic lifestyle protocol. And it's not just about the food either. So this lifestyle is about being patient, giving yourself grace when things get hard, and showing yourself a bit of love. Relearning what you know about nutrition and reframing your mindset also have a role to play. It's like the triple threat. So, I can't becomes, well, how do I find out about that? And it's too hard becomes, well, that might be achievable. And what if I fail becomes, well, I'm curious to see what happens if I can. And I'm not ready eventually becomes, well, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? So relearning how to speak to what we need, to regard ourselves in a positive and encouraging light, and realizing that that negative self-talk is optional, that we are worthy of love. This is life-changing because we learn that our physical and mental well-being are inextricably entwined. So this is the learning that comes with the lifestyle, learning to nourish your body and your mind, learning about your body and how it works and why it responds to the food the way it does, learning about what nourishment is, and learning to love yourself in a way that you weren't even aware of before. So we're all constantly learning and experimenting. So I did this really mental thing and started running 2 days before my 44th birthday. And last December, I ran a full marathon. How can you tell if someone's run a full marathon? There it is. I ran a marathon. So if you told me I was capable of that 3.5 years ago, I would have told you you're a maniac, because I didn't run unless something was chasing me, and then the chances were that I would fall flat on my face within the first couple of strides. So I still can't quite believe it, but I don't wake up in pain anymore. I've never felt fitter and more present and fulfilled in my work, in my relationships, in my life, and that didn't happen in 6 or 12 weeks. I'm 3.5 years in and I'm still learning, I'm still experimenting, still evolving in this low carb space and still growing into myself. And I've lost 27 kilos in the process. So this lifestyle encompasses a daily routine, our thinking, our relationships, and yes, the food that we're eating. So if all this is new and shiny and overwhelming, it doesn't have to be. So community is paramount. So surround yourself with like-minded people. Don't let others discourage you from making changes, and you will get people that you'll get the, what are you doing that for? Oh, just have cake. Oh, you don't say that to a recovering alcoholic or a drug addict, right? But they're uncomfortable with the changes they see in you, and that's okay, but that's their issue. It's not your issue. So my circle of friends is very, very different to what it was 5 years ago. Nothing was said, but the silence was deafening. But that's okay, because I was a sugar addict. I'm a recovering sugar addict. I was an industry-leading cake artist surrounded by sugar addicts. So some people take your decisions about your health personally. Wonder why that is. But I have found my tribe. So please know that there is support out there. And if you don't find it amongst your friends, then I can assure you there are many low carb support groups and network out there, like we are here gathered tonight. Low Carb Melbourne, which I'm surprised I'm the only one wearing a t-shirt tonight. A part of the admin team, as mentioned, with Tracy and Jill and Dr. Avey, is a community of people from all walks of life. We have people curious and just watching what we're doing. We have people that are on the path. We have doctors, holistic practitioners, nutritionists. We have a few cynics. We have people that advocate LCHF. We have meditation, all sorts of people in the group. And we've grown, I think we're at 1,300 members now. Don't know, but it's an amazing group of people. Yeah. So there is knowledge, generosity, support, and love out there. So one plate at a time, one day at a time. Progress is not linear. Okay, nothing is perfect. So if you show up and you make a plan, create your days, you will fail, you'll learn, you'll fall over, and you'll learn some more, and you fall again. You just got to keep getting back up. Okay, learn from your experiences and keep going and start again. So yeah, find your tribe, eat real food, live your best, long, healthy, independent, and happy life one day at a time. Thanks.